Well, y'all, this package from Rancho Cucamonga arrived today, and while I'm not entirely sure what's in it, I do have a pretty good guess, and I figured you guys might be interested. Although, let's be real, you've already seen the title, so you know, even though I don't know yet. It is what I thought it was. So Grabie asked me if I'd be interested in trying out their 12-month watercolor calendar, as well as their new 168 watercolor set. I figured for the watercolor calendar, you guys definitely would be interested in hearing my thoughts on this, because a while back, I did the Sarah Cray Advent Calendar, the Let's Make Art Advent Calendar, and you guys were really into the idea of the monthly watercolor calendar. So figured you guys might be interested. On that note, that this was sent care of. So I said, yeah, I'll do a video for you guys. They sent me the supplies. I did not get paid for this. I did not accept money for this, but this was sent to me. And I want to be crystal clear about that, because for me here on this channel, that makes this not a review. We're just looking at it. I am going to be honest with my opinions. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly as we come across it. But I thought this might be beneficial for answering some of your questions regarding perhaps their month-long watercolor calendar, as well as their new 168 classic color set. Now, to be absolutely honest with you guys, I have talked about Grabie here on the channel before. We did one of their subscription boxes. I did that as a live stream. I have talked about 2 of their watercolor sets, one of which I purchased myself and another that has been sent to me. I will link those down in the comments, or rather in the description below, and I hope you guys will check them out. I'll also have them in the cards for you guys if you guys are curious. This is a white label company, so this is not really like your standard US company. I believe they cherry pick products from different lines and kind of put them together with their own branding on it. That is not necessarily a bad thing, but I did think that was something that you guys should know about. They also contacted me a couple weeks ago about doing this. I waited a couple weeks for it to arrive, and part of the deal was that I would get this out within a week of arrival. So it doesn't really give me a lot of time to take a look at it, to put it through its paces, and to talk about it. But I'm going to do my best for you guys, because I do think you guys will be interested. All that preamble out of the way, this is the Grabie 12-month watercolor calendar. It says that if it does not perform properly, to please contact them for a replacement. So what I think that means is not like if you didn't like the paper, but rather if the paper had a massive malfunction, a giant crease, a big old ink spot, or a big old grease spot, then you could get a replacement. This is a mixed paper. So it says supporting responsible forestry. I am assuming there is cellulose inside. The cover is very cute. It is a 12-month watercolor calendar for 2025, made by Grabie. It is shrink or released, distributed by Grabie. It is shrink wrapped. So I'm gonna carefully open this so we can take a look at it. It is super duper 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 wet outside today. So dry times might be, well, we will see if I have to pull out my hairdryer. You might want to do a better job opening it than I did. And the design is kind of reminiscent of Rifle Paper Company. It is in what looks like a card envelope. I'm trying to be very careful with this, but, oh, that's cute. Okay, so we have 2 cardboard risers. We have this one already has a dot on it, our 12 months. And this paper does not feel like a watercolor paper. It feels like a mixed media paper. I do wish they'd kind of sent like a spare sheet so you could get a feel for the paper before you start painting on it. And then the way this works is there should be, oh, okay, all right, easel style. like this, and then you prop this here like that. Okay, that's pretty cute. So it's like a little desktop style calendar. An idea for this, I know us artists, we never have room on our desks, but it could be really charming to do this calendar, to paint it, to draw it, and then give it to somebody who does do desktop calendars as a gift, like a wonderful way to give some original art. And then I guess you could cut the calendar part off and it would leave a cute little square. Next is our 138 colors. This is their classic set. So it has 84 regular colors, 48 metallic colors, 12 fluorescent colors, and then 24 of what they call their macaron colors. Not sure if that means they are pastels or what. The back of the box says, "We at Grabie have experienced the uplifting, inspiring, and healing powers of creative expression through art and are passionate about art as a way to support mental health. To bring this to life, we have created the Grabie Art Fund, where your purchase helps fund the donation of art supplies to our partner organizations who provide art therapy programs to people in underserved communities. We strive to support access to art for all people, regardless of age, background, or how they identify. Together as a community, we are a creative force for good." And this set includes 168 watercolors, a Grabie exclusive water brush pin, a pencil, an art sponge, and a watercolor swatch sheet. This also has the same guarantee. And Grabie watercolors are available in a variety of sets and colors. And please visit grabieart.com for more information. Now, in my other Grabie videos, we have checked out their website. We have talked about that before, so I'm not going to revisit it today. And part of that is because my videos are so long and I'm trying to make them a little bit more, a little shorter, a little more digestible, a little easier to edit. I thought this was a belly band, but it's actually just kind of dusty. It is actually very dusty. All right, so inside, okay. Oh, wow. Wow. There is, let me see if I can show it. Quite a bit of stuff in here. Okay, come on, you. Here is our watercolor toolkit. Here is our, ooh, that's kind of cute. Oh, it's heavy too. Our watercolor. Here is an instruction sheet on the water brush. Our swatch. Yeah, that's a lot of swatch. A lot of swatching going on. Our swatch pad on what feels like a cellulose paper that has been embossed with a texture. Here is our watercolor coloring book. It says 100% cotton and 10 sheets. So I don't know if this is a, oh, it's available in a variety of themes, actually. You know, I'll be honest with you guys. I kind of love the idea that they've done the line art for me, because I was kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to field test this. I don't know if I have a concept. Oh, it's birds and mushrooms. Oh, I wonder who the artist is. I wish they would credit the artist, because I know an artist did this. Oh, no, I love it. A lot of nature, flower, perfect. This is like my kind of thing. So I am excited about this. We will paint maybe this one. We'll paint one of these. I'm such a nerd. I do wish I knew what flowers and what birds they were, though, so I could reference them. But, you know, I like it. All right. So let's actually do the watercolor toolkit next. It includes our Grabie exclusive water brush pin, a pencil sharpener, and an art sponge, all in here. Okay, here's our sponge. It's just like a white plastic sponge. Here we get three water brushes. One of them is a travel size water brush. We have our pencil, and we have a small, maybe it feels like magnesium perhaps, sharpener. And then finally we have our watercolors. This is so many watercolors. There is a plastic divider that could technically be used as a mixing sheet. And then, so what I want to do with you guys, and we got a lot. We got a work cut out for us, but I want to start with swatching these, right? So we can get a feel for these watercolors and we can talk about them. Then I think I want to paint one of these, and I really want to do the watercolor calendar, but I really want to do it right, and I really want to take my time. So I'm not super sure just yet how I'm going to do the watercolor calendar, because I'm kind of thinking of somebody who might enjoy it as a gift, and I'm kind of thinking about doing it as a gift for them. So I'm going to let this kind of bake, even though this is the thing that I told Grabie I wanted to do. I'm going to let this bake because it's the thing I was the most excited about. And we're going to start with our watercolors. And that'll also let us know if we want to use these watercolors on this calendar. For the sake of transparency, I am not usually a water brush girly. We have 3 of them here. I just have a hard time with water control with water brushes because I'm heavy-handed. But since this is a kit, and I want to actually talk about the kit, I figured it would be beneficial for us to actually talk about the water brushes. So they seem to have a kind of gel in the 2. These are both the same size, the travel brush and the larger version of the brush. They don't fit in here, so you would maybe want to bring a travel pouch anyway. And then there is a small, ooh, that's shedding a lot more hair. Oh my. I was going to use the flat, but it is like really shedding hair. Okay, I think it's done. So I think I'm going to use the flat for the swatches on here, and I'm going to use the included sponge. I will let you guys know, again, I am not really a water brush kind of gal. I'm going to do my best, and usually I don't swatch with the water brushes because I don't want it to impact my judgment, but since this is a kit, I did want to, like, you know, use the stuff in the kit as much as possible. I have washed the, I don't want to call it sizing because I don't think it's sizing, the dippity-doo out of the brushes. I want to point out that these caps, they do post, but they're not the most secure. So, like, just kind of be careful about posting your cap on your brush. They also don't have a clip or anything like that. And there's nothing really to stop these from rolling. These are also really standard for water brushes that you might receive in a watercolor kit or as like a free water brush. So while they're handy to have, and I really am kind of, without having used these paints yet, I love a kit that has like everything you need. The paper, the paints, the brushes, the pencil. I love it. So I'm not gonna, like, you know, snark on the fact they included 3 water brushes. I think that's great. This set really reminds me of another watercolor set that I've reviewed by another brand that you guys might recognize, See Me Art. I will link it for you guys down in the description if you're curious on my thoughts about these kind of sets just in general. And I want to be clear, I don't consider this set to be a professional grade set. It's in the hobbyist category for me, which is a little bit lower than student grade. So I'm going to mostly be judging on how fun this kit is. I'm not going to be putting it through the same kinds of tests that I normally put watercolors through, because I've reviewed variations of this set, both from See Me Art as well as from Grabie in the past. And that's not really the focus of this video. So if you're looking for an in-depth review, I'll link that for you guys down in the description. This is just kind of an overview of a few of the things that they sent me. This set is pretty similar in quality to the See Me Art set. So if you want my professional artist opinion about this set in particular, you can check out the actual review that I did in the past with a watercolor set that I paid out of pocket for, because again, this was sent to me care of. I don't really feel comfortable treating this as a review. This is kind of more like an overview, taking a look at this set. So they included that little plastic sponge. I wish the sponge was bigger. It doesn't really absorb water and it gets full quick, and you guys will see that in a moment. It is fairly easy to clean though. I mentioned earlier, I'm not really like a water brush girly. I have trouble cleaning out the brushes. I find I go through the water really quickly. I'm kind of heavy handed, so I tend to squeeze too much and I have trouble with water control. So these are pretty standard in my experience with water brushes. They're not like the best water brushes I've ever tried. They're not the worst water brushes I've ever tried. And I do appreciate that Grabie included them with this kit. I really love the idea of watercolor and art kits being more all-inclusive, so that if you were to give it as a gift, it would already contain everything you need for the person you're giving it to get started. I also appreciate that they included this labeled swatch sheet. I have reviewed watercolors of a similar quality in the past that did not come with a swatch sheet. I think when you're dealing with 168 colors, having a swatch sheet like this is really helpful for getting an idea of what these colors look like. Unlike in my watercolor reviews, I am not going to use a piece or a sheet of Blick Studio cotton rag paper and do all of those tests. I just don't really feel like these watercolors sort of merit that. When I said earlier that these rank as a hobbyist watercolor for me, what I mean is if you are just looking to put some watercolor on paper, you're looking for color, maybe you're into coloring books, or you're not really into watercolor, or you're not really into all of the different techniques that you can do with watercolor, and you just want to do kind of a solid fill of color, this would be good for that. This might be good for a younger artist. I do have some concerns about with some of these watercolors that come from other countries, and they're not coming with any kind of information sheets, they're not coming with pigment information, they're not coming with binder information, I would be hesitant to give it to a younger child, someone under the age of 13. 13 and up, I feel like as long as they can operate with discretion and not paint all over themselves, they'll probably be fine. There's a wide selection of colors in this set. This kind of set is really designed so you don't have to do a lot of color mixing. Basically, any kind of color that you might want would already be available. And it's also not really designed for a lot of watercolor techniques. And you guys will see that in a little bit because I am going to put the set through the paces. It's not really designed for like wet and to wet. It's not really designed for a bunch of layers. It's more so designed for like applying a field of color and allowing it to dry and then moving on. So there's also what they call macaron colors, like macaron, like the cookie. They are kind of like what some of you guys might think of as Morandi colors as well. There's more muted colors, more gray colors. They sort of remind me of the Kuretake Art Nouveau colors. There are some pastel and, more macaron sort of colors in there as well, but there's a lot of grays and more muted tones. There's also a good number of mica and metallic colors in this set as well. So really, if you're just looking to use a water-based medium and you want your colors already mixed, you want it really quick and easy, this could be a good fit for you if you're just looking for a water-based media that you can have some fun with. I didn't have any particular activation issues. The white is not as opaque as you might hope. From a white, you can't use it as like a white gouache or to add in white details, but you have so many other colors, I don't really feel like I'm super missing out on that. You also get a good selection of other types of colors too, so you should be able to paint pretty much anything you might imagine, pretty much any subject matter you might imagine. Swatching 168 colors takes a while, but here they are all swatched on the included swatch sheet. Kind of feel like the little sponge they included was not quite up to the task, but I did want to put it through its paces. I want to try out as much of this as I can. So that means next I want to take a look at the 100% cotton coloring pad. Something I thought was kind of funny though is some of these color names. We have classics like dirt, but we have kind of our more regular colors, and then we have our fluorescents. And what they meant by macaron was more muted colors as well as pastel colors. And then we have a whole bunch of metallics. And it's really easy for these kind of companies to include a bunch of metallics because you basically just take colors you already have and add mica. Same thing for the macaron colors. You take colors you have and you add a little bit of white. So here is the watercolor coloring book. I'm going to pick one image from this to do, and I'm going to use their colors, of course. It says 100% cotton. It might be. It doesn't quite. Ooh, I think that's supposed to be a peach. That could be fun. Let's do the peach. Why not? All right. So I was able to peel it out without too much problem. And I'm going to go ahead and use the tape to tape it down along all four edges. So this is an illustration from the included coloring pad. I think that was a really nice inclusion because it kind of takes some of the pressure off of like coming up with something that you might want to draw. And if you were giving this as a gift, I feel like this makes approaching water-based media more accessible. Now, this is an area where I kind of feel like the water brushes really make it a struggle. Now, this is about a $60 set on their website. I think it's like $58. So, I would recommend maybe throwing in a few normal style watercolor brushes, maybe a couple of quills or maybe a couple of flats, just to make covering large areas like this a little bit easier because water brushes are really not great at that. The line art was a colored line art. It's like a light brown. So if done well, it should blend in with your watercolor. And I wanted to use the water brushes with this as well, since they were included. And I wanted to kind of test the kit out as like an inclusive kit. So I'm not really sure that this paper is a cotton rag. If it is, it's a water media friendly paper, not necessarily a watercolor paper. It's more like a mixed media paper. You technically can paint on it, but it's not really receptive to water or a lot of watercolor techniques. Water just sits pooled on it. It doesn't really soak in or evaporate off. So on this paper, dry times are going to be longer if you're using a lot of water like I did to start out with. These paints are very stiff, particularly with these water brushes, and water is hard to control with these water brushes. I sort of feel like I'm just glopping paint around and hoping for the best. The paper doesn't have an assertive enough texture for granulation or other interesting effects to show up or to really pull and hold the paint. I'm also having a hard time with these water brushes. Nuance escaped me with these, and one of the large rounds has a long hair that really messes up the brush strokes, and this is going to be particularly noticeable as I paint the stem. These really remind me of my previous experiences with Grabie watercolors. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised they contacted me again about checking out their products. I'm not your usual TikTok girly singing their praises and pointing you to their TikTok shop. And I've had some pretty negative experiences with Grabie watercolors in the past. That said, I decided to handle this video a little bit differently. We're just going to take a look at these products. We're going to talk about them more generally, and then I will link additional resources if you guys are still curious or if you're even thinking about buying this set for yourself. I do appreciate them giving me the chance to look at it. When companies contact me about these more student and hobbyist grade products, it allows me the opportunity to share them with you guys and talk about them with you guys and compare them to some of the other products like more professional grade paints that might be available. Now, personally, although I do have a large convenience palette for painting watercolor comics, I don't think you need 168 watercolors to successfully be able to paint. I really think you need 12 as a minimum. You can do it with 6, but it's a bit of a struggle. Ideally, 24 is a really good place to be in. That way you have some convenience colors and you have some more unusual colors that maybe you can't mix in addition to your more standard mixing set. So even though this is a 168 color palette, I by no means think you need all of these colors. And honestly, My personal preference, I am not a metallic watercolor kind of person in general. I have a couple of good golds that I really like. If I'm going to use metallic watercolors, I typically will recommend that people turn to fine tech. It's just not really my vibe. It's not my favorite thing. So to me, you really don't need the metallics, and you should be able to mix most of these colors if you're using a high student grade or a professional grade set. So don't feel like you have to run out and buy the set just because it has all the pretty colors, but it is handy to have all of the pretty colors if you're into, say, coloring book coloring or printing out line arts and coloring, and that way you're not worrying about color mixing. You have your colors already available. I was particularly excited about was giving their calendar a try. And since I played with the materials that they'd sent me, I decided to use some of my favorite materials for this one and really give it a good shot. So I am sketching with a mechanical pencil that I am comfortable with rather than the pencil that they sent. And I am inking with a Sakura Pigma FB. I'm going to do all 12 months, and I'm going to do the monthly flowers. This is a gift for my mother-in-law. And after talking to my husband, we decided she would probably enjoy flowers. I am going to be using Mare Marie blue watercolors, so professional grade watercolors on this paper. This paper seems to be the same paper that they're using for the pre-printed line art watercolor pad. So this will give you guys a chance to see how this paper handles with other types of watercolors. I wanted to go with something that was both pretty and simple. So I'm going to be demonstrating a watercolor punch technique, and I'm not going to walk you guys through it necessarily because I'm going to pull that aside and use it for its own standalone video if you guys are interested in the tutorial for that. I spent about 7 to 8 minutes drawing and inking each of these flowers. I wanted to keep it very simple, kind of sketchy, kind of light, and kind of easy. I did scan the line arts and the finished watercolors, and I will be sharing the line arts over on my Patreon if you feel like painting along or you just happen to like my floral art. I found that these were very easy to ink on. This seems to be more like a mixed media paper than a watercolor paper, and it really kind of reminds me of Strathmore's 500 series mixed media paper, the paper that I use every year for Lilliputian living. If you're interested in learning how to draw florals like I'm doing here, I'm kind of tempted to pull each one of these flowers out and do kind of a standalone drawing tutorial to share on TikTok and on Shorts. But I do have playlists where I walk you through how to draw various flowers, whether it's more complicated or more simple. I've got a little something for everybody. I'll try to remember to link that for you guys down in the description. I even have some really short, like literally YouTube short, so 60-second length flower drawing tutorials that I recorded a couple of years ago. So if you guys are interested in learning how to draw a variety of flowers, I got you. Check the description. And here are all 12 of our flowers for each of the months. So this isn't a super sturdy paper that can take a lot of painting or a lot of layers. So if you're doing this little calendar, try to keep it simple. I'm gonna go for something kind of like an ink and wash, and I'm also taping down the edges. It might be kind of thirsty if you wanted to use alcohol markers, but it might be a fun paper for gouache or acrylic markers. As I mentioned earlier, I am using my Mer Marie Blue watercolors, and I'm also using my silver black velvet watercolor brushes. So I'm using the materials that I really like and that I'm very comfortable with. I'm not sure that this paper has much sizing. Painting on it really reminds me of a decent mixed media paper. That said, this paper takes forever to dry. It is particularly humid while I'm recording this. Actually, I'm recording the audio for this the day before Hurricane Francine hits. So it's been super rainy, super humid this week. And I actually had to pull out a hairdryer several times to dry this. And it took longer than I really expected, given how simple this technique is. It's a very cute technique and it's actually a lot of fun. And I definitely want to do more with it. But on this paper, the dry times are pretty long. So if you do already use a hairdryer with your watercolor illustration, it should be fine for you. I don't like using a hairdryer because I find it pushes the pigments around, but I had to pull it out for this one because it really just took too long. So this is a very mild-mannered paper. It doesn't have an assertive texture. It doesn't have a lot of structure, so you're going to want to tape it down if you're going to add a lot of water to it. You do get some granulation, and I will show you that a little bit later on with some of the flowers that we're going to get to, but it's not like painting on a rough press or a cold press. It has a little bit more tooth than a hot press. I would say, like, given my preferences, I like a paper that has a little bit more tooth for drawing and sketching. This could be a really good one for drawing, ink work, for maybe using a nib on. I haven't tried a nib yet, so I don't know if it catches. It might be a good one for inking on. It might be a good one for gouache because it's kind of a mixed media paper. My gouache friends let me know. I'm not a big gouache girly, so I can't really answer to that. This could be a decent one for color pencils as well. Grabie is marketing this, it seems like, online as a watercolor calendar, and they're not just selling the calendar, they're selling it with sets. So that's why I wasn't able to provide you guys with a snippet of like just what the calendar costs, because they're not selling it individually. But if there's enough demand, they may choose to do that. For me, this is kind of like an art challenge, right? Where we have a whole year, 12 months worth of illustrations to come up with. I like themed sets. So I feel like a little calendar like this that you can put up on your desk and you can share with people could be a really good way to kind of do a little mini 12-day art challenge. So maybe they'll consider selling a larger version. Maybe they will consider selling the calendar as a standalone on its own. So you can see with this one, there's a little bit of granulation. For some of the flowers, especially like the white flowers, I tried to do kind of a mixed color punch so that we could get a little bit more variation. What would have been really cute is if I'd gone back and added white gouache to highlight some of these flowers so that they really stand out. And that might be something that I explore when I kind of pull this away and do a standalone video. But for me, for this, with the timeline that Grabie wanted me to be able to fulfill, they wanted this turned around in a week from when I got it, I had to kind of be judicious in planning out techniques and how I wanted to execute this and kind of tying it together. And I kind of like that because that's a fun challenge. As someone with ADHD, I actually like boundaries and figuring out ways to work with my boundaries. So, I felt like having those kind of limitations and keeping it simple really kind of worked to my benefit and worked to the benefit of this paper. Given what I experienced when I was painting the printed line art from the book, and I think it's the same paper, I don't really think this paper is like great for like a lot of watercolor layers or a lot of really wet into wet washes. It can handle some wet into wet, but it just doesn't really have the structure for it. It's really more of a mixed media paper. So if you end up trying this out and you end up trying it with a different media and you like it, let me know how you feel about this. And Grabie, if you want to send me another calendar for me to do with acrylic markers, I would be down for that. I had fun doing this, and I'd love to kind of see how another media that I like might handle on this paper. And I could definitely do like fruit or mushrooms. Joseph also suggested animals. My concern was like doing animals might have taken a little bit too long for me to do a good job and turn it around quickly. So on this paper, water control is super important. You guys see me sopping up extra water as much as I can. I really tried to give the punch, the water punch, lots of time to dry. I was doing chores, I was working on other projects. I really tried to give it plenty of time to dry out, and it really did not want to. So, you know, just I think that's something that's really worth keeping in mind if you're going to be painting along, if you're going to be using this product as well, so that you can kind of plan accordingly. I really thought that I would be able to knock out the sketches in one day and then knock out all 12 of the watercolors, because it's a simple technique and I've done this before, on another day. But the dry times themselves really made it take 4 days instead of 2 days. Not a huge deal, but longer than I, an experienced watercolor illustrator, was expecting it to take. So, you know, just a heads up, be patient with it, be patient with yourself. That said though, I had a lot of fun with this. I think the flowers turned out really cute. I had fun playing around with a new technique. I was looking for something that would, you know, bring some vibrancy, bring some playfulness, bring some liveliness to the page, because my mother-in-law is this really like vivacious, sweet person. She's got a big, like in a good way, a big personality. And I wanted to, but she's this tiny little woman. So I wanted something that kind of, you know, celebrated that in like kind of a simple way, if this makes sense. I think this is pretty fitting for her. She's not a super flashy person, but she does enjoy flowers. And I think this is definitely going to be up her alley, and I really hope she enjoys it. And honestly, I'm kind of weird about giving my art as gifts. I used to do it a lot. And I have found that sometimes giving your own art as a gift to somebody can be kind of a painful experience if it doesn't hit right, or if they, you know, different people have different needs. They may not need like something to put up on their wall, for example. But Joseph said that she does use desktop calendars and she works kind of a graphic design. She does the ad layouts for the newspaper that she and her husband run. So she does spend a lot of time at a desk, and this might be like a cheerful, more personalized thing that she can just kind of have on the desk, other than me, you know, looking at ads all day. I don't know. I do hope she enjoys it though. And I really did enjoy working on it. And when I started this with the flowers, it was with her in mind. So how I handled this, what I chose to do, some of the techniques I chose to use, they were with my mother-in-law in mind. And I really do like making art with people in mind. I mean, that's why I became an illustrator, as I use art to communicate and to communicate some of my better, higher feelings. So, you know, I had a lot of fun with this. I know that kind of like is like a sidebar from, you know, talking about the paper, but I do feel like I've talked about the paper. Otherwise, it's a fairly standard calendar. They did send me 2 Marches instead of an August, so I had to hand letter one of the Marches into an August. I guess that doesn't make any sense because the dates are probably like all wrong. There's not, she can enjoy the flower at least. There's not really much I can do about that. November's chrysanthemum ended up being my favorite. Instead of doing like multiple complicated layers or anything like that, because it's got a lot of petals, I decided to really focus on this beautiful wet into wet gradient. I do think switching out to professional grade watercolors that I think handle florals beautifully was a good choice for this. I feel like with their watercolors, I might have struggled more. I might have been more frustrated. That was a personal choice though. Me going with something that's within my comfort zone instead of spending the extra time trying to fight with a product that I'm just not as familiar with. And I wanted to kind of point that out just because I feel like it's more honest, more transparent, and also to encourage Grabie to consider offering the calendar as a standalone product, or maybe you can buy like 2 or 3 calendars at a time. I love this thing. It's not perfect, but I love the idea of it. I know I have been sent paint it yourself calendars before, and it really boils down to format for me, but I could see this being a fun class project, whether you divvy out different months to different students, or every student is in charge of planning a cohesive calendar design that then now they have like a piece of art that is also functional. Like as an art teacher, I love that idea. I would love to be able to buy 6 or 7 of these and be able to use this as like a class project, because doing this might be a little easier than keeping a sketchbook for some people. Or you could even do like 1 illustration every month. There's like so many ways you can break a calendar challenge down into something that works for different artists, and I really love that kind of idea. Now, all that praise said, this little monthly calendar is cute, but it's nothing super special. I know personally that cotton rag watercolor paper can be challenging to print on, so that might be why this feels like a mixed media paper. It may have just been easier to do the printing on a mixed media paper. On some of these, the water is just sitting, which means it takes hours to do anything. Not really a quality you want with a watercolor paper. So Grabie may want to kind of rebrand this a little bit as a mixed media calendar and consider packaging it with some of their other art supplies, and that may kind of free it up from some of the preconceived notions that artists like me might have. I have finished the Grabie 12-month calendar. You guys can see I decided to go with a floral theme. I think I'm going to give this to my mother-in-law as part of her Christmas present, since Joseph said she does actually use desktop calendars, and that was kind of my inspiration for actually finishing this, was since I had someone in mind to make it for, it made it worth finishing. I am not necessarily the best with like creating calendars, as you guys might know, but I think this turned out really cute. I really like what I came up with. I like the kind of splatter punch effect, and I think I may even turn a demonstration of this technique for you guys into a tutorial in case you guys are interested. November might be one of my favorites. I love the color combo of the orange, the red, the purple, the green. That's super pretty. But I went with the official flowers of the month. I know sometimes there are alternates, but decided to go with the official list for this, even if some months it's not actually my preferred flower. Like March, my favorite flower is irises, but fortunately Joseph also really likes irises, and he is a February birthday. So the little easel is cute. I do kind of wish it wasn't like branded with their branding, just because their branding is already all over it, and like how much of their branding do you need for this, you know? Especially if I drew and painted this to give it as a gift. Their branding is not my favorite for that. I could go over this with acrylic markers and hide it, but I'm afraid the acrylic markers would probably eat up the stand, so I'm probably not going to go in that direction. Today we took a look at both Grabie's new 168 color set. I have talked about Grabie watercolors in the past. I will link those reviews, so if you guys are curious in knowing my review opinion of these, I hope you guys will check those out before you purchase them. Today I was just kind of enjoying myself, swatching, having some fun, trying them out. With this watercolor kit, they also sent a booklet of coloring pages. So I painted one of the pages from that book using their set. Not really my favorite combo. I also tried out their calendar, and I used Manu'd blue watercolors for this, and I'm much more happy with how this turned out. But I do have to say, although I do believe these papers are cotton papers, I feel like they're probably more like mixed media papers than true watercolor papers. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with me today, because I enjoyed hanging out with you guys. I hope to see you guys again soon. If you guys have tried out Grabie's subscription box, if you're going to try out their art supply advent calendar, if you've tried out their 12-month calendar or their watercolors, and you want to share your opinion with me and with everybody else, please feel free to do so down in the comments. I will have show notes in the description. And I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, because I really enjoyed getting to draw and paint with you guys. Keep an eye out for a punch watercolor technique tutorial in the near future. Bye guys!